What's up guys, it's Dan It's Gone, and today we'll be looking at 30 trades, one for each team, going into the 2024 MLB trade deadline. The trade deadline is one of the most important and exciting days of the entire league calendar, and the moves made during this time period not only have ramifications for the upcoming postseason, but also for future postseasons to come, with the level of young talent coming back in the trade dictating the strength of a team in the future. This important part of the trade is why I will be crafting 30 full trades, complete with a return package, for teams to not only assess the value of some of their players from selling teams, but also the worth of some of the better young prospects in the game. But before we get on to the trades, could you guys please hit the like and subscribe button? Currently, only 3% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if y'all do, not only would it help me grow my channel, but it would also encourage me to create more videos like this one for you guys. Without further ado, let's get on to the video. The Diamondbacks are a tough team to gauge going into this trade deadline due to the levels of injuries sustained to this roster, many of them only a couple weeks to a month away from rejoining the team. However, they are also 50-48, just one game out of a wildcard spot, and seem very much to be buyers in this market. Due to the levels of injury, it's difficult to find a hole that will not be patched with an upcoming return. My trade instead involves shoring up the bullpen, which has seen some struggles with injuries and inconsistencies from some guys. By adding Tanner Scott, a lefty reliever, to be a great shutdown reliever against lefties, they become much more solid. In this trade, the Diamondbacks would be giving up pitching prospect Blake Walston and center field prospect Andrew Pintar. Walston has the potential to be a middle to low end starter as a lefty with a low 90s fastball and decent off-speed stuff, while Pintar has been posting a great season, posting an OPS near 900 across high A and AA, with 9 home runs and 19 stolen bases. A great package for the Marlins and their rental reliever, while the Diamondbacks get a great reliever. The Atlanta Braves have one of the best rotations in all of baseball, but their lineup due to injuries and underperformances has looked a little bit worse than it has over the past couple of years. With holes in both the shortstop position and outfield, I could see a couple of moves being made, one of them being for Brent Rooker. While not the best fielder, Rooker definitely adds offense to this Braves team, something they desperately need, and with a lot of team control left on his contract, the Braves have a ton of leverage due to their strategy of signing quality pieces to a long-term extension, and Rooker is definitely worth such, being one of the best hitters in the American League both this year and last year. With his contract, it is going to cost a lot though, setting over Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, Luis Guanipa, and Drake Baldwin. While giving up 4 of the top 10 prospects in any system is never going to be fun, and it's a great package for the Athletics, the Braves acquire another star in their deep lineup, and they're about to be replenished prospect-wise from this 2024 draft haul. The Baltimore Orioles have been decimated with pitcher injuries this year, and it becomes paramount that they address that issue going into this postseason. While fans clamor for Tarik Skubal, I think the chances of him being traded are pretty small, but they can go for the next best thing in Garrett Crochet. Having the best season in his career, Crochet has solidified himself as one of the nastiest starters in all of baseball, and a definite weapon come postseason time, both for this season and beyond. A worthy player to acquire in a trade and give up top prospects for, sitting over Heston Kierstad, Dylan Beavers, and Cade Povich. Definitely not breaking the bank for the Orioles, but giving the White Sox 3 quality former or current top prospects for the 25-year-old lefty. The Red Sox currently sit over 10 games over 500 and are in a very encouraging spot going into the second half of the season. However, if the playoffs started today, who would be the starter in a 3-game series after Howick and Cutter Crawford? While both Nick Pivetta and Cooper Criswell have been solid for the team, they could use an upgrade, which is why I could see them trading for Rangers star Nathan Eovaldi in a return back to Boston. Eovaldi gives the Red Sox another middle to high-end starter as they continue their playoff push, while also adding that ace-level playoff experience in the process, costing them 2 solid prospects in 20-year-old right-handed starter Elmer Rodriguez-Cruz and 21-year-old outfielder Alan Castro. The Cubs and their collapse over the past few months have made them slight sellers this year, although they have an elite farm system and controllable pieces on the roster that they may look to just sell off assets that are close to expiring contracts. One of whom is Cody Bellinger, who has a player option for $27.5 million for the next 2 years that he is likely to accept, making it slightly difficult to trade him. However, if the Cubs are willing to eat some money, especially in the first couple of years, then this could work. In my trade, I have the Cubs sending over Bellinger plus cash to the Mariners for outfielder Aiden Smith and third baseman Ben Williamson. The Cubs here would get Smith, a toolsy 19-year-old with power and speed, and Williamson, a polished hitting third baseman with a batting average in the high 280s and an on-base percentage nearing 400 in high A and AA. Another seller on this list will be the Chicago White Sox, and since I already made 2 videos dedicated to both Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet, this time we look at trading away Eric Fedde, a breakout piece for them, after being signed from Korea for a manageable 2 years and $15 million this offseason. Fedde has been excellent with a 2.99 ERA in 111 and a third innings, and will be having a line of suitors looking for a reliable starter like him for both the upcoming run to the playoffs and the playoffs themselves, driving up the price. In my trade, I have the White Sox making a deal with the Brewers, acquiring 18-year-old infielder Eric Batoni, 19-year-old pitcher Bishop Leston, and 19-year-old shortstop Cooper Pratt. Three of the Brewers' top prospects, all very young and with high ceilings, albeit in the lower levels of the minor leagues, although capable of ushering in a new era of White Sox baseball, along with whoever they acquire in the other trades. The Reds could make a couple of moves to push for a playoff spot since they're in a decent shot of making it if a couple of things break right, but I think what's best for them right now is to sell high on Jonathan India and his 124 OPS plus breakout campaign. The former Rookie of the Year still has a decent amount of control left on his contract, but with Matt McClain returning from the injury in the long run, combined with Noelvi Marte and Elly De La Cruz, India is squeezed out in the big picture, and now would net the biggest haul. In my trade, I have him going to the Red Sox, getting pitching prospects Luis Perales and Wilco Men Gonzalez, as well as outfield prospect Miguel Bleis. Perales has high upside as a righty with a high 90s fastball, while Gonzalez has showcased himself as a solid arm with decent pitch mix. A great haul, especially for someone who doesn't fit in their lineup long term. For the Guardians, it's obvious that they should buy, and really the question comes down to which starting pitcher they should pursue heavily to bolster a rotation still missing a top guy. With a relatively strong top two in Tanner Bibby and Ben Lively, the Guardians should look to add another middle-of-the-rotation starter, this being Yusei Kikuchi. While the 4.42 ERA doesn't look the best, the peripherals are some of the best of his career, and he's striking out a ton of guys while not walking many. For this trade, the Guardians would send over outfielders Jonathan Rodriguez and Wilfredo Antunes, and right-handed Double-A starter Tommy Mason this trade, lower-level depth prospects for the rental lefty starter. The Colorado Rockies are in clear sell mode, and after making it clear that they would not trade Ryan McMahon, the trades then turned to their starting pitching, which has some top-end guys with soon-to-be expiring contracts to trade. I got Cal Quantrill going to the Cardinals for Cesar Prieto, a 25-year-old infielder in AAA who's got an OPS over 850 and the infield flexibility to be a contact-first utility man. I know the Tigers front office is definitely not actively pushing for a Tarek Skubal trade, but if a team is willing to send over a franchise-altering haul, then it would be foolish to at least not hear them out. A Tarek Skubal trade could be the thing that boosts this offense especially, and for a team that just isn't quite there yet, this could be the move. In this case, the franchise-altering package would be from the Orioles, acquiring Jackson Holliday, Colby Mayo, Connor Norby, and Cade Povich. A slight overpay by the Orioles, but I don't think that the Tigers would take anything less than a future superstar in Holliday and three potential stars in Mayo, Norby, and Povich. For the Astros, the quest is clear, and that is to capitalize on these final years by adding another impact bat or depth starter. Going with the former, I have the Astros acquiring first baseman Christian Walker, who is nearing free agency on the last year of his contract. While the Diamondbacks may be hesitant to trade the franchise cornerstone first baseman, they have a neat hitting first base prospect down on the farm in Division de los Santos, and the Astros could offer an enticing package that would be better than just losing him in free agency. This enticing package would consist of third baseman Will Wagner and the power-hitting 20-year-old Luis Baez. Again, while a slight overpay, the Diamondbacks have all the leverage here, and that they can just keep Christian Walker, and I don't think that they would settle for anything less. And for the Royals, they have serious holes in the outfield, third base, and DH positions. If they are truly serious about competing, I could see them making multiple trades to make this team into a contender, one of them being for Lane Thomas from the Nationals. Lane Thomas, ever since he was traded from the Cardinals, has been one of the Nationals' better hitters. While never elite, Thomas always provides valuable production with the bat, especially against lefties, and holds his own against righties, while potentially filling in for the DH position for years to come. For this, the Royals would then send over 27-year-old infielder CJ Alexander, 19-year-old catcher Ramon Ramirez, and 23-year-old utility man Javier Vaz. For a consistent bat in Thomas with a decent amount of team control left, this is a solid package for both the Royals and Nats. Tyler Anderson is having a breakout season this year, pitching to a 2.97 ERA in 19 starts, and it has led him to suddenly become one of the best pitching pieces on the deadline this year. While his previous track record and large contracts subtract from his value, the Angels could get some serious prospects the more money they send back in a trade. With a ton of pitching-hungry teams on the market, I have Tyler Anderson going to the Brewers as well for Luis Lara and Carlos Rodriguez. Luis Lara is a 19-year-old outfielder who is one of the top international signees for the Brewers in 2022, while Carlos Rodriguez is a 22-year-old starting pitcher who is MLB ready, and although he doesn't have overwhelming stuff, his arsenal is fleshed out and he shows decent command to be a middle-of-the-rotation starter for the Angels. Not a bad haul for a player whom many Angels fans saw as an albatross of a contract after his first year. For the Dodgers and their level of uncertainty regarding much of their top of their rotation, I would love for them to grab a veteran, reliable starter, preferably one with playoff experience, to add increased depth and ease concerns regarding current events. I think Michael Lorenzen is a pretty good fit for the Dodgers here. Although they will have to compete with a plethora of other teams for this trade, for another reliable starter and valuable contributor in the playoffs, Lorenzen and a decent amount of his money to pay for his contract will go to the Dodgers for a pair of pitchers in 20-year-olds Hyun-Seok Jung and Jackson Ferris, a righty and lefty respectively. The Miami Marlins should commit to the fire sale of this team, especially after trading away Luis Arias, and this means trading away some of their other big pieces for even more top prospects, one of them being Jazz Chisholm. This season, Chisholm has stayed healthy, and although the hitting numbers aren't the best, being about league average offensively, Chisholm's upside as one of the best power speed players in the game, combined with 2 more years left of control after this one, makes an intriguing case for any team with a plan of competing for the next couple of years. I actually like Chisholm going to the up-and-coming Royals. Chisholm has the speed to cover the vast grounds at Kauffman Stadium, and the Royals need a center fielder for the long run. In my trade, I have the Royals sending over a top prospect, Blake Mitchell, a former first-round pick at catcher at 19 years old, 21-year-old Ben Kurdna, a former top prospect and 2021 first-rounder, Frank Mazzucato. The 3 top prospects in the Royals system, and although the Marlins would much rather love position player prospects in this trade, Kurdna and Mazzucato are both solid prospects, and the Marlins would be happy in this trade. The Milwaukee Brewers are in need of one, if not more, reliable starters going into this trade deadline. While I don't see them going after some of the top pitching options in the game, multiple lower-tier guys would definitely be on the table. I've already made a couple of trades involving starting pitchers to the Brewers, and another one could be acquiring Jack Flaherty from the Tigers. Flaherty has had a great season, pitching to a 3.13 ERA in 16 starts, and is looking to be one of the better starting pitchers in that second tier of pitchers on the market. In this trade, the Brewers send over Eric Brown Jr. and Josh Noth. Brown is a 23-year-old toolsy shortstop who has struggled in Double-A, but could really need a change of scenery, and Noth is an 18-year-old righty with a high 90s fastball and one of the best curveballs in the entire Brewers organization. He's a long ways away, but he does have upper rotation stuff if he does pan out. The Minnesota Twins are very much like the Brewers in a sense in that they have an extremely solid team offensively, but struggle with the middle of the rotation. While every starter that I've already talked about could also go to the Twins, another option could be Luis Severino from the Mets. Severino has had a great season after signing a 1-year $13 million contract, pitching 109 innings with a 3.78 ERA. While the Mets very much look like they are competing, they also have the positional depth at pitching to afford to make this trade if the Twins give them an enticing offer. Like in my trade where they send over slugging former first-rounder Matt Wallner back in the deal. An interesting trade for both sides, and I think the Mets would be happy with the valuable team control added in this trade. Now with the Mets, they are in an interesting spot, precariously hanging on to a wild card spot thanks to their hot record for the past month. Their performance over the course of the next couple of weeks will determine how aggressive this team will be going into the deadline, but I do not expect them to make any drastic moves in either direction. At the end of the day, I believe that Pete Alonso will not be traded, and the Mets may even buy at the deadline to improve their chances. The Mets have had a lot of issues right now in their bullpen. Edwin Diaz hasn't been himself, and those around him have not been able to pick up the slack effectively, 2 impressive seasons of their own. As a result, I like Jason Adam, a 32-year-old shutdown reliever, to go from the Rays to the Mets. Adam is nasty with a 1.67 ERA on the season and a ton of strikeouts and weak contact to slot in as either the Mets assassin in the bullpen or simply the closer, costing them semi-top prospect Kevin Parada. The Yankees could move in a lot of directions, and if there is one good thing about this recent slide, it's that it highlighted the weaknesses on this team to tackle during this year's trade deadline. In my opinion, the main weakness has been the lineup, and really the lack of production outside of Judge, Soto, and Stanton. And as a result, I could see them going after a ton of position players, one of them being Luis Rengifo. Rengifo, a utility man who has mainly played third base, has had a breakout season with a 123 OPS+. He could also play the outfield as well, meaning that if one of the Yankees players is cold, he could sub in for them, while also playing third base for the majority of his time. A free agent after the next season, he also fits in with their plans for the next year and becomes a potential extension candidate. In this trade, the Yankees would send over Oswald Peraza, Brock Selvage, and Kyle Carr. Peraza doesn't really fit with the Yankees' plans long-term as a middle infielder who is struggling in AAA, but is only 24 years old and is a former top prospect, while Selvage and Carr are both young lefties for the Yankees, capable of making their debut as depth starters as soon as next year. The Oakland Athletics are still in sell mode, and with Miguel Andujar having a decent year on the second to last year of his contract, he becomes an intriguing buy low candidate for a team in need of an outfielder or utility man. The team that calls to me in that regard are the Royals, who would get Andujar for 21-year-old catcher Carter Jensen, who has posted an .821 OPS this season at High A. With a good arm and growing knack for fielding his position, Jensen is well on his way towards being a solid depth piece at catcher for the A's. A pretty big win considering how they really got Andujar for nothing the previous offseason, claiming him off waivers. The Phillies have the best record in the National League and are staying right at one of, if not the best chance of winning a World Series ring that they will ever have during this contention window. In order to consummate this potential run at a World Series, the Phillies need to fix their center field issue. Johan Rojas, while a great fielder, has been a pretty huge negative for the team offensively, and one Luis Robert could be a huge upgrade for them in center field. Also with a contract to help them in future seasons and be an extension candidate long term, becoming a free agent after next year. But for one of, if not the best player going into this year's deadline, it is going to cost them a decent amount. In my trade, I have Aiden Miller, Brayan Rincon, and Eduardo Tate heading back in the deal. Aiden Miller is the main piece as a former first-rounder with immense power, but Rincon and Tate aren't slouches either. Although they are in the lower levels of the minor leagues and Tate is only 17 years old, they have immense upside as prospects. The Pittsburgh Pirates are in an interesting spot, hovering right around 500 and are right in the thick of the NL wildcard hunt thanks to great all-around pitching led by Paul Skeens and a top-heavy lineup led by Brian Reynolds. With their current record and young-ish core, their aim should be to buy low on some low-cost rentals or players in order to push for a playoff spot, and worst comes to worst, a 500 team. One small addition I could see would be Kevin Pillar, who can not only play center field for this team, one of the major holes on this roster, but also is hitting pretty well with a 120 OPS plus. And being on the last year of his contract is not going to call for a significant prospect return. This trade is pretty easy. Emmanuel Terrero, a 21-year-old athletic outfielder in High A, gets sent to the Angels to complete this trade. Terrero has struggled in A-ball this year with an OPS below 500, but the Angels see him as a depth outfielder in the future with his athletic potential, while the Pirates get a lot better production from the center field position this year. The Padres are another one of these National League teams who are in need of some help in the back end of their rotation or bullpen if they wish to break out of this 500 purgatory that they're hovering around in. As aggressive as the Padres are, I see them going after Zach Littell to bolster in the back end of their rotation, while still letting the top guys in Joe Musgrove, Dylan Cease, Matt Waldron, and Yu Darvish produce when healthy. Littell is a veteran starter, and although he has given up a little bit too many hits this year, he's still a great innings eater and back-end starter. Also under contract for the next season at an affordable rate, he gives the Padres more depth for the next year as well. For this, the Padres would then trade Victor Lizarraga and Homer Bush. Lizarraga is the main piece in this trade as a 20-year-old starter already in Double-A. Meanwhile, Bush is an incredibly athletic center fielder with a developing bat in High A at 22 years old. For the Seattle Mariners, the answer for what they should do at the deadline is pretty obvious, and that is to buy some impact bats for their lineup. For this, I like Yandy Diaz going from the Rays to the Mariners. For the past couple of years, Diaz has been one of the better hitters in all of baseball, and although he's having a down year this year, his track record suggests that he could turn it up another notch at any time, especially considering that he just won the batting title last year. A free agent after the 2025 season, Diaz is reaching that time for Rays players to be traded for before they cost an exorbitant amount, and the chances are not zero regarding a potential trade, especially since the Rays seem less than stellar this year. And with the burgeoning farm system, the Mariners get this trade done by sending over Ty Pete, Michael Arroyo, and Tyler Goff. Pete is a tantalizing prospect for the Mariners that the Rays would love to have, being only 18 years old with a great arm and feel for the shortstop position, while Michael Arroyo has been a breakout prospect this year with an OPS over 900 across single and high A at only 19 years old. Two borderline top 100 prospects for Yandy Diaz, and I have no doubts that they'll crack the list as they move up the rankings, with Goff being a nice add-on as a young starting pitcher. With the Giants sitting under 500 with a negative run differential, I think much of this trade deadline for them is going to consist of watching other teams make moves barring any drastic developments like a big winning streak. However, I think that the most likely outcome for them would be to sell off some expiring contracts, and maybe even get some young major leaguers to plug in as well. One of which is Michael Conforto, who, if the Giants eat a decent portion of his remaining salary, could be a valuable asset in a trade. Considering how Conforto has posted a 115 OPS plus in 73 games this year as a left fielder and designated hitter, many teams would need an impact hitter, and I think that the Braves could be a suitable candidate among many. In this trade, the Giants would get 26-year-old Major League ready lefty in Dylan Dodd, as well as Alan Winans, very similar except 28 and a right-handed starter. Two depth starters who, although they are on the older side of things, could very much be late bloomers to become something for this Giants ball club. The Cardinals are in a playoff spot, but a negative run differential suggests a potential regression candidate going into the second half of the season. These next 2 weeks are going to be huge to determine how aggressive this team is going to be going into this trade deadline. And in my opinion, if the Cardinals don't play otherworldly baseball over the course of the next couple of weeks, they will just make some small additions, either to the outfield or starting rotation. One small addition they could make is Jon Gray, who would be a middle-of-the-rotation starter for the Cardinals and add even more veteran presence to a rotation that has seen its ups and downs. A free agent after the 2026 season and about a league average as a starter, the cost depends on how much the Rangers are willing to pay. However, if they're trying to cut payroll, the trade would look something like this. The Cardinals acquired Jon Gray, including roughly 90% of his remaining contract, for a couple of 20-year-olds in outfielder Wo Bin Cho and right-handed starter Zach Showalter, both middle-of-the-ranking prospects in the Cardinals system. The Tampa Bay Rays have already shown a willingness to trade their guys on expiring contracts like in the Aaron Civale trade. And although I've already done a lot of these potential players that they could trade in previous segments, the player I think that they're most likely to trade is Ahmed Rosario, who signed a one-year deal this offseason and will be a rental to whoever team makes the trade for him at a cheap price. Rosario is having a good season offensively, hitting .308 and slugging over .400 for a .115 OPS+. And although he doesn't play the best defense in the infield or outfield, there are a ton of teams in need of slug, and for his positional flexibility combined with that bat, the line of suitors will be out the door. Although an interdivision trade, I like him going to the Yankees for Clayton Beeter. Beeter, a 25-year-old righty, has had a great, albeit short season in AAA this year, and has the off-speed stuff to be a middle-of-the-rotation starter or a great reliever. He has a great sweeper, the Rays' specialty. Due to injuries and underperformances, the Rangers' World Series defense has not turned out the way most fans expected. And as much as it hurts, the best possible thing for the Rangers to do for the long term is trade away expiring contracts and shed payroll. We've already covered a plethora of pitchers in previous segments like Eovaldi, Lorenzen, and Jon Gray, but one more pitcher that is left is Kirby Yates. Although on an expiring contract, the All-Star has been excellent for the Rangers with a 1.05 ERA in 34 innings. Many teams will want that shutdown reliever, but I see him going to the Orioles in a small move in which the Rangers acquire 19-year-old power-hitting outfielder Thomas Sosa and 25-year-old pitcher Justin Armbruster in the trade. For a team who just signed Yates for nothing in the grand scheme of things, getting a high-upside player in Sosa as well as a soon-to-be MLB-ready starter in Armbruster is definitely a net win, all things considered. Many Blue Jays beat writers say that this team will hold on to both Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette for the next year and make one more run with this current core. Barring a huge overpay, this means that the only other player left for the Blue Jays to trade is Yimi Garcia. Garcia, while not the dominant shutdown closer on the market, can still provide value to a contending team as a great setup man. With a 2.57 ERA and 38 strikeouts in only 28 innings, there will be a healthy amount of teams lined up for his services. In my trade, I have him going to the Phillies for Hendry Mendez and Samuel Arrighetti. Mendez is a 20-year-old outfielder who has the potential to be an everyday player, but is only in high A and needs a ton of time to develop. While Arrighetti is a 22-year-old lefty who's in AA, who's posted a 3.08 ERA on the season with 103 strikeouts in only 73 innings, a great package for a rental reliever for Toronto. Lastly, we have the Washington Nationals, who have already traded away Hunter Harvey to the Royals for a big return, and now look to trade closer Kyle Finnegan for a similar if not better package. Finnegan has been excellent for the Nationals as their closer, posting a 2.45 ERA with 25 saves on the season, and will be a free agent after the 2025 season. Finnegan is on the upper tier of relief arms on this market, and his contract allows for some teams with future aspirations to pursue him, even if they are long shots to make the playoffs this year like the Cubs, who acquire him for 23-year-old catcher Pablo Aliendo, who is mashing in AA right now, 22-year-old Jackson Wiggins, a righty with a high 90s fastball, and 24-year-old depth outfielder Christian Franklin. A great return package overall that also makes the Cubs a much better team for this year and beyond without sacrificing the main portion of their elite farm system. Well, that was all 30 teams. Let me know if your favorite team overpaid or underpaid for their players. Also, let me know if there's another player that you think that they should have traded. And if you have any other video ideas, whether it be for the draft, the trade deadline, or any other ideas that you may have, let me know in the comments down below. And without further ado, I will see you guys in the next one. God bless.